Hi everyone, welcome back. This is episode 3 of the Cotch podcast on the Yak Chat channel. We've got our usuals today. We've got Big H, Big Newt in the background. And we've got a new guest today, Big Earl.
That's not a good nickname at all.
Everyone's just
Big
big
Earl.
initial, that's it. For anonymity. Anonymity. Today, I don't know if you've heard the news, you probably have. Manchester City have been banned from the UEFA Champions League for 2 seasons and fined €30 million after they were found to have, and I quote, seriously misled UEFA and broke financial fair play rules. So basically, this all started in 2018. A site called Football Leaks gained access. Basically, UEFA, in legal proceedings, they can't access people's documents like you can in a normal court case. But obviously, individual journalists can. And Football Leaks put in a request to get these sort of staff emails and stuff from City. And a site called Der Spiegel in Germany, a big sports site, they basically did a huge investigation into it a couple of years ago, and it's sort of been ongoing up until this point, and that's what triggered the rehash of the investigation. And I'll talk about it anyway, but initially City did get punished for breaking the rules a few years ago, and it wasn't sufficient at all, and they've just carried on, so they've had to sort of come down hard.
So it's been going on for years?
Yeah, it's been going on since they bought the club. Which is it's quite crazy, really, when you get into it. But
that oil money.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. That oil money, bruh. Basically, the owners of Man City are also the royal family and or work in the government in Abu Dhabi and the United Arab Emirates. And the initial charge was the owner, Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan, used the country's airline Etihad, which you'll notice is everywhere to do with City, as the front for their £67.5 million a year shirt, stadium and academy deal. And if you know anything about football finances, that's a stupidly inflated number for what they'd get back. It turned out 58 million of that 67 million came from his own company, the owner, as if countries buying teams wasn't dodgy enough. Using that natural advantage to further escape fair play rules, says all you need to know about these owners. And there is a sort of running context here that they aren't doing it for good reasons at all. They're not doing it to improve football because they love football and got a lot of money and thought they'd spend it on their favourite team, etc. In my opinion, UEFA never really wanted to pursue it. They never really going to give them a punishment. Even the 2 seasons ban from the Champions League, when you find out everything that they've done, it sort of puts into question the right for them to be a top team at all, because this has been going on, as I said, since the day they bought the club. So basically, if City appeal, which they will be doing, and the appeal isn't sorted by the time the Champions League starts again, they'll just go into the Champions League and the ban won't uphold. So basically, UEFA punish them, City appeal, the appeal never gets dealt with until they've already been in the Champions League for so many years that people don't really give a shit anymore, as a lot of corporate cases go. So the emails came out in 2018. My first question, not to use, but just to UEFA, would be, what's the need to drag it out? They should have been under instant transfer ban, much like Chelsea did for tampering with youngsters and stuff. So in 2014, Gianni Infantino, who was the general secretary of UEFA at this point, who's now the president of FIFA, I might add, which is a bit scary. And he wrote to the City chair explaining how City can avoid trouble as harmlessly as possible by means of a settlement with UEFA. And this was when the original case came out, 2014-ish. Right. Similarly to PSG, who are owned by the Qatar royal family. So effectively, we've got the new FIFA chief going beyond his remit and telling teams that they can get away with punishment by doing this. So this is a man working on behalf of the company that's supposed to be punishing them. So it's a bit like a bank robber deciding how long he goes to prison for, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pablo Escobar, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it is. It's cartel
It is similar
shit.
to that. It's cartel shit.
And on April 15th of that year,
Manchester cartel.
the Manchester Mafia, Salford Mafia. Actually, no, Salford's United, so I'm making stuff up now.
Someone's going to be mad about that.
Yeah. I've just started civil war in Manchester. No, on April 15th of 2014, Soriano, who's the managing director of Manchester City, told Mubarak, the club chairman, and I quote, "I had a good phone call with Gianni Infantino, the UEFA secretary, where we agreed how we would like to guide the lawyers, negotiating a settlement that is more than a warning and can be seen as effective and convincing, but doesn't affect Man City's business." So we're already contradictory. How can you be punished for something if the punishment isn't going to affect you? It's
not
all
a punishment
fucking
then, is it?
exactly. It's all fucking bollocks. Mubarak said he wasn't happy about a fine and said he'd rather spend 30 million on the world's top 50 lawyers to sue UEFA for the next 10 years, saying the Football Association only has one option: to prevent the destruction of its rules and organisation. So we've got someone that's come in, they've been found out for lying about their sponsorship money, and in turn for that they say, no, we refuse to be punished. In fact, we will just turn it onto you and tear UEFA down. They don't like football. As I said, the running context here is they ain't interested in the football. The day they received an email from the club financial control body, which is the body UEFA used to hand out punishment, etc., with the recommended settlement, the chairman of the FFP controller resigned, citing the mild settlement given the size of the violations, and said that he couldn't be seen to be a part of it. So the main guy at the head of the body that charges teams had to quit out of embarrassment that the settlement was so mild. And after months of more threats, a €20 million fine was agreed. Since then, they've spent over £1 billion just on player fees.
No way.
Yeah. That's just since 2014
See, this
as well.
is the thing, the fine that they're handing out is a drop in the ocean.
Yeah, it's like what a player gets for getting a red card, and they get fined a grand, and that's not even 100th of their wages. You know what I mean? It's almost pointless going through spending the money on the judges and shit. All taxpayer money, of course.
Right, how is it taxpayer money?
Yeah.
The courts would be.
Oh, the courts, right.
Yeah.
No, but surely you pay in court fees. Whoever's involved will pay in court fees, right?
Oh yeah. If you lost, you'd have to pay the settlement.
Yeah.
Unless it was the
'cause the court
CPS.
fees-
CPS is taxpayer, because that's on behalf of the people, not the state.
Oh, okay.
So if they had that equivalent with this, then yeah, that'd be the case. If not, I think you're right. And the day before Soriano signed the 20 million settlement, Jean-Luc Dehaene, head of the club financial control body investigation, died. So one resigned, another one died on the day that it was signed, and City's lawyer replied to an email from another staff member who just told him about the death, saying, and I quote, 1 down, 6 to go.
No way.
I swear to God.
And what was the cause of death?
I don't know. Not sure at
Suicide.
all.
Has it been released, you know?
I think he just died of like heart attack or something like that, but I didn't dig into that.
Yeah.
Ricin.
Yes, yeah. I was just
Dodgy,
thinking, yeah. It's always the rice one. So that's what happened around 2014. So already about halfway through their ownership. We go right back to the start. Their owners joined in 2008 and had spent 1.1 billion before 2012. So they'd spent $1 billion before the investigation, and since that 20 million settlement, they've spent another $1 billion.
Damn.
Yeah, and they're willing to destroy UEFA over getting fined. It's the bad vibes from these guys. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just dodgy AF.
Yeah.
So they spent $1 billion before 2012, and in 2013 was when the financial fair play rules came in. So before that, there wasn't any rule, so the spending was technically allowed. But I think a couple years before the rules come in is when they'd start to backdate it. So basically, they got a boot up their arse, and they realised that they've only got a couple years to try and circumvent the law. So City agree to, and a lot of what I'm reading is all from leaked emails, so this is straight from the horse's mouth. So City agreed to aggressively seek out ways to circumvent the rules. Soriano had this to say about it in a private email. Everyone is pushing for FFP. We will have to fight this, but not visible. Otherwise we will be publicly portrayed as the global enemy of football. So they create a secret project called Project Longbow. And if any of you know your military history out there, the longbow was the weapon that the English used to defeat the French. So Michel Platini is a Frenchman who was the head of UEFA at that point. So they're literally referencing killing the French as their secret plan name to get rid of the French president of the UEFA. Like, in it, it's just gang shit. This
I was gonna say it sounds like a rap, like a rap beat.
People stick up for it. That's the crazy thing. And Project Longbow will be a central model, again I quote, that allows us to push many of the operational costs away from the club. So City go ahead and found some sister companies to outsource their business. One example of this is the club moved the individual players' market rights to an external company, something they'd normally pay each player individually from the club. So when you sign for a club, the club also has to pay you for the rights to use their marketing.
Right.
So sort of like a model JD would pay for the right to use their image in future campaigns and shit like that. Whatever.
Does it like to have names on shirts and stuff like that as well?
Yeah. Without it, they wouldn't be allowed to sort of be in the adverts for the shirts and shit like that, and it would all get very complicated. So it saved the club €30 million, moving this to a sister company. The company was called Fordham Sports, and I quote, is very important for our longbow goal, according to City's finance chief, Jorge Shumilas. And it all leads back to Jonathan Rowland and his father David, former Tory bankroller and disgraced for barely paying any UK tax for decades, and long-time confidant of the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, incidentally the same family that owns Lee's lot. So Fordham Sports itself as a company leads to a British strawman company, tax haven business, to the Virgin Islands, and finally to the Rowlands Family Trust. Internal documents further reveal the nature of this connection. So Sheikh Mansour's holding company, Abu Dhabi United Group, transfers money to the Rowlands, with which they can buy ad rights and pay for City's players. The transfers are coordinated by City itself. It's just the money that everyone else plays with. So Fordham acts as a vehicle for hidden financial injection from Abu Dhabi. PwC, who's like an auditing court, auditors commissioned by UEFA said, and I quote, "It was very good business for Man City, but it's very difficult for us to understand how Fordham even wants to make a profit from the business." Because you think, what good business would it be for them? What does Fordham Sports get out of paying millions of pounds for City to use someone's rights? They don't get anything out of that. City attorney Simon Cliff replied, "Fordham has not shown City its business plans, but internal documents reveal that they had actual images of the structure and you can see it, and they say that the money's going to come from them. It goes to Fordham Sports. Fordham Sports leads to this company, leads back to the Rowlands, who are friends of City." So that was just a complete lie that they had not shown City its business plans. They'd actually been emailing each other about it, and actually City came up with the business plan. Another City employee said they did it because the price was right. Well, they created the price. And again, I say, we've got images proving that they know exactly how Fordham got their money back. So that's one way that they circumvented paying for the money, which is what the investigation was to do with. But there's also other ways in which they circumvented rules to get what they wanted. And I'll bring it back to the actual investigation, but this is just a little side one. So Guardiola, best coach in football at the time, signs for City on October the 10th, 2015. For 13.5 million the first year and 16.75 million for the second. And I know what you're all thinking, if you know German football, wasn't he still at Bayern and wasn't Pellegrini at City? That's correct. So, they're signing secret contracts whilst under contract of another team. Entirely illegal in sport. It's tampering. You can't do that. But Pep and City kept it hushed. Weeks later, the Sunday Mirror wrote that City director Chiqui and Pep met in Barca, leading to speculation, obviously. So the papers started saying, we think Pep might be going to Man City. City didn't like this and applied pressure on the media, and apply pressure was their term, on the media to stop talking about it. The media obliged. And in control of the story now, City wait. But this sort of ties into the overall goal and aims and mission of these owners, is that they can obviously have some essence of control over the media that other clubs can't. And with sporting success and pro PR work, they gain the sovereignty of interpretation in Great Britain. Sovereignty of interpretation, what I mean by that, the inhabitants, this is a good way of putting it, the inhabitants of a country that boasts the founding state of the modern rule of law and democracy celebrate the government members of emirates in which the death penalty for adultery and prison threatens public kisses. So basically, what I'm saying is, through being a successful team and through very good PR work, they can essentially diminish any sort of connection to what the owners actually do when they're not owners of City, i.e. killing people for adultery and throwing people in prison for kissing people in public. Suddenly, all of that goes out the window because they're successful. And what you see every day is City doing well. The sort of the Sheikh Mansour is always painted as like a really elegant, kind figure, and whenever they do like videos on City, all of the staff are always talking to him and stuff like that, and it's a lot of imagery
it's
stunting.
a front for the politics.
Exactly.
To try and make him look better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you, I don't know if you've ever watched All or Nothing, which is like Amazon are doing these sports documentaries called All or Nothing. They've done one on a couple of American football teams, Juventus, Milan, Man City, and they like follow them around for a season and film like behind the scenes sort of stuff. And they set up a trip to Abu Dhabi with all the players for the documentary, and if you watch it, like, it is literally like what you imagine the sort of tourism branch of the government putting out as like an advert to come to Abu Dhabi. Suddenly, 1 minute it's like a backstage sort of offhand documentary, and all of a sudden it just goes into all these sleek shots of like Abu Dhabi and everyone like, it's like an advert in it, and it's just so obvious what they're trying to do. And for example, take Arab Tech, and this is just to prove that they will only ever do anything as what we see good if they are pressured to, if they have to, and even then they will try and avoid it.
Yeah.
So take Arab Tech, a company that City themselves had internally been warned about due to negative press surrounding its working conditions. If you remember all the Guardian exposure of all of the work deaths in Arab Emirates surrounding, and Qatar surrounding the World Cup, etc., etc. Well, this is the company that was basically doing slave labour. So City, instead of not doing a deal with that company, they circumvented the PR, and they just signed a contract for countries where working and human rights don't affect reputation, i.e. Turkey, I think Iran and Russia. And so they just did deals with those countries. And it just says it all. They don't care that the company was responsible for deaths. They just care if it would put a negative light on them.
Mm.
They value football through the value it adds to the Emirates' reputation. They have no respect for the rules, the sport, the players or fairness, and they'll do whatever it takes to tear it all down if it means good imagery. Now the next point as to why I think UEFA are just sort of doing this because it's getting to the point now where if UEFA don't do anything, then it all seems like a conspiracy. And this is to do with De Bruyne and buying players, how they can pay for such high salaries, etc.
How much is De Bruyne on?
I think it's 250 to 300 a week, grand.
That's $1 million a month.
Mate, you start to think and you just think, how the fuck can they afford it and turn a profit?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
incredible because
They can't make that much off shirts.
Bro,
Like,
City,
you can make a lot of
City
shirts, but not that
City
much.
don't have one of the biggest stadiums in the league, and I don't think they filled it once in a regular season game.
They just made it bigger, didn't they? What's it now?
I think it's 49,000.
It's getting there. It's in the top 5.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. And they can't fill it ever. I think the only time they've ever filled it was in a Champions League quarter-final or semi-final. It's pretty similar to Wembley. It's too big for the support base. And so if they're not... I mean, you take Liverpool, for example. If you aren't from Liverpool, you can't go and watch Liverpool because it's that hard to get tickets. City, you could probably turn up on the day and get a ticket on the door. In the Premier League, it's just unheard of.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really understand. Like teams like Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, they make the money because they're so famous abroad, etc. City don't quite have that reputation yet. They're very new and they haven't had time to sort of build a base in Africa and Asia, etc.
See, that's the thing. I'm not a massive football fan, but I remember kind of, I don't know, about a decade ago that, or when before they bought it out, City weren't really doing too well.
No.
They were never a big club. Do you know what
No.
I mean? It was always Man U over Man City.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, it was bought out, and they just seemed to pump a shit ton of money into it, and then all of a sudden they just ranked up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess in that sense they are a pretty new club because it is a new Man City.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, because if when you gradually rise up, you gradually build a supporter base, you gradually build a merchandise sort of base as well, I guess, where people in other countries buy your shirts and shit like that. And yeah, I don't see how they could make as much money as all the other teams, even still to today. If you can't fill your stadium, then you can't be earning a lot of money. It's pretty obvious sign of where your fan base is at. If they're not even turning up to watch the team, they're not going to be buying full kits, are they? So yeah, let's go into De Bruyne. Basically, City were told that De Bruyne wasn't for sale. They still did not want to sell, said Soriano. We are putting lots of pressure on and hope we will get it done ... against their will. That's not how football usually goes. If a team says, no, there's no way you are getting him, then the polite thing to do in sport is you put bids in, let them know that you're happy to up the price, but putting pressure on is, in a lot of leagues, seen as tampering. And Bayern Munich get in a lot of trouble for this when they buy players from other German teams. And it's nowhere near the scale that City have been doing it. So they signed him for 75 million euros weeks later. And a year after, Leroy Sané was offered a deal that said if he earns less than 24.5 million in the first 3 years, they'll wire him the difference. And Bayern, the other team who were in for him, like I said, always stand accused of being able to outspend their rivals. They stood no chance of competing with City financially. And these transfers only happened because they were allowed to cheat for a decade beforehand. This is what you got to keep remembering, that their success only came through being able to cheat. Only. As good as the players are, as fantastic as Guardiola is, they wouldn't be there otherwise, etc., etc. And again, I'll keep reminding you, they're cheating only to add international legitimacy to a authoritarian regime with very, very bad track records on human rights. But it's also important to note, when we compare City and Bayern, this is less the owner's fault and more a sort of shock to the system in how skewed football is towards the Premier League. City got 170 million euros from league broadcasting in the year 17-18. Bayern got 75% less. Bayern are unanimously a bigger team than Man City. One of the top 5 teams in the world, without doubt, have been for nearly 100 years. It's a long time. And City, around this same time, City started to clock onto the idea that a global empire of teams could be the answer to turning a consistent profit. So when Roberto Mancini signed for City as manager, he also signed an advisory contract with sister club Al Jazeera, not the same as the news company, spelt differently, splitting his salary with a non-UEFA team. So they don't fall under financial fair play, Al Jazeera. So essentially what they did is, instead of paying Roberto Mancini 3 million for his contract, which isn't that crazy at all for a manager in the Premier League, in fact that's actually not a lot, they split the payment. So he takes an advisory role to a team. So once a year they might ring him up and say, what do you reckon on this transfer? And that's it. And he's getting paid exactly the same as he is to coach City. And they're from the same owners. So do you know what I mean? If it was different owners and one team wanted to pay more for his services than the other, that would make sense. They might be more desperate. But when it's the same owners, why would you pay someone $1.5 million to coach a team in the Prem, and then also charge him, or give him, $1.5 million for a little bit of advice for the board every now and then? It makes no business sense, which tells you that if good businessmen are doing something that doesn't make business sense, there's got to be some other, it's got to come back to them at some point, innit? Do you know what I mean? That's how business works. It doesn't not work for good businessmen. So that was the end of Man City and the start of CFG, the City Football Group. New York, Melbourne, Uruguay, Spain and Japan all have teams owned or partially owned by CFG. Nearly all of them are to save cost on youngsters, and they're even talking about how they signed a team in Uruguay so that they could avoid tax on the sales and to guarantee playing time for Manchester's younger players, etc. So it's sort of half good reason, half not. And also, nearly all of them have been performing quite well. So even though they're just used as sort of front for Man City, they are actually all quite successful. And since it became CFG, they've increased their value by a factor of 10 in 7 years, from the 100 million they paid initially for City. So they cheat, and then they spread that money out, and now they're profitable. If that makes sense. So CFG is football capitalism at its most pure and successful. But like most capitalist ventures, it relies on cheating, control, bullying and violation against its own industry. So I'm going to ask you boys, is it enough to ban them from single competitions and not actually affect their future, even though they've bought themselves Premier League titles? It's a big thing. Do you know what I mean? If you, as a Liverpool fan,
billions of pounds,
yeah,
and many other currencies,
yeah,
and
as a Liverpool fan, it kind of hurts to think that, Well, you know what I mean? We lost the league last season by a point. We lost once all season. And the only reason why we aren't seen as the best team is because someone's cheated themselves to near perfection. And all they're going to get is... I mean, when you look at the table, they might not qualify for the Champions League this season. So, like, is it even a punishment? And is it time to tell these owners to go back to their palaces and start doing the job they're employed by the Abu Dhabi people, which is to run their fucking government?
Yeah, very true.
Is it time to push UEFA to say that maybe they should have to sell Man City? Do you think that's too harsh?
Well, I think just me as someone who has only heard about all this through this right now.
Yeah.
I think that because obviously they've kicked him out of the Champions League for 2 years, took away 30 million, which is pretty much a bloody slap on the wrist.
Peanuts, isn't it?
It's nothing. But I mean, it's sad because there's a lot of players there, and even Guardiola. Maybe I don't know how involved he is in all of it, but
it seems like he's privy to the information, but I wouldn't suggest that he's not
the mastermind behind it.
He's not really interested in giving Abu Dhabi a profit.
He's just hoping he can get the players he wants.
Yeah, he's happy to get who he wants, and if they're dodgy about it, then I won't ask questions.
Which is understandable.
Italian football 101.
Trust. But like the thing I don't get about the whole punishment is it's the other people who are doing this wrong, but they're punishing like a player like Sterling, who's, do you know what I mean? He's a young English player as well. Someone who, like, we have a lot of developing players, both for England and many other countries, who are now being left out of the Champions League, even though they're great performers, they're great sportsmen, and the only way they're going to get into this competition, which them as players have worked hard for, the only way they're going to get into it is by leaving or by waiting 2 years. And for some players, e.g. like Sterling, they might be at their peak athletic performance.
We've got Euros and World Cups the next 3 years.
Exactly.
So
we need them to be at their best, and it's not saying that they're not good. It's not like their footballing ability is going to diminish because they're having a couple less games and that. But the problem is these people, these individuals who have worked hard to get where they are,
have been punished.
They're being punished. Meanwhile, the people, as you said, who are actually employed to do a whole nother, way more important job,
are still allowed to make money.
Are still allowed to do their thing. Like the fact that it's been going on for
2008,
12 years. That's mental. I think personally, whether it's they sell the club or whatever, but there must be a punishment towards them. Like if they're like I'm an idiot to this situation. I don't really know what's going on to the full extent, but how much money do you think they've made from all of this situation? How much have they profited?
I'd probably say now that they've been profitable for sort of 5-6 years with a number of teams, I'd say that they must be making hundreds of millions to a single billion now.
Is that what? Do you mean like in total or per year for the last 5 years?
As in, if they sold up now, they'd probably be able to sell all of the teams for around $1 billion. And they bought it for 100 million.
See that. Is the problem the company? The CFG company.
See, that's what I was going to ask.
Because is it actually bad that them having that? Is that actually ruining football? What's like? Maybe I'm just a bit confused myself, but what is the punishment actually for? Like in layman's terms.
In layman's terms, the punishment is for misleading UEFA during investigations and breaking financial fair play. So it doesn't seem to be for the fraudulent behaviour. It doesn't seem to be for the distasteful behaviour, which isn't illegal but just isn't sporting or whatever. And it doesn't seem to be for the City Football Group.
So do you feel like maybe they're getting a bit of a sweetheart deal?
I think so, because the way that if you read the charges and you just said, oh, they broke financial fair play, you'd just be like, oh well, do you know what I mean? They probably signed someone. It turned out to be 10 million more than they said, and do you know what I mean? It makes it seem like City aren't doing anything majorly wrong.
Yeah.
And yeah, because with the whole owning various teams, to me, I think that's just going to be the future of sport. Like, it just makes a lot of sense to own
sports
feeder
company
teams.
conglomerates who overtake all these teams.
The people that own Liverpool own Boston Red Sox and shit like that.
Yeah,
and
the Kroenke owns, the Arsenal owner owns
is it
some
Boston
Canadian.
or New York?
I'm not sure, but they own a Canadian hockey team, ice
That's
hockey
it.
team.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not sure if sort of buying a crappy little team from Spain and making them good, and also using it to give your youngsters playing time. To me, to me, it's annoying, frustrating, and in the end, it could lead to bad shit. But at the moment, to me, that seems like good business.
Yeah,
it seems like good business.
It's good to be able to put your players somewhere else and make sure they get play time.
Yeah,
I think that's
essentially it's an English team, English players to us getting game time in Spain and shit. It's, I mean, that's sweet for us.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, okay. Well, let me ask you then.
Yeah.
As someone who's clued up about the whole situation, what should their punishment be?
I think they should have to sell Manchester City.
Get them out of football.
Yeah, if you spend $1 billion before, you get investigated, you threaten to tear down. Like, you got to remember, like, to people like me and you, your dad, even you, even though you're not like particularly into it, you can still recognise that football is a religion to a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
Like that is that's my daily prayer, is in it. Do you know what I mean? That's what if I'm feeling shit, if I whatever, I talk to the football gods. Do you know what I mean? No, but it is to a lot of people. Most people are atheists nowadays, and we find our religions in other things. And for someone to come in and distort that, I think we should take it a bit more seriously. Football is the most popular thing on earth outside of religion, outside of Islam and Christianity.
Yeah, it's the most attentive. It's thing with the most
common
got
hobby.
the most eyes on it, hasn't it?
Yeah. It always has the most views during World Cups, etc. So it's an important part of being a human now, and do you know what I mean? So it's very serious. Not to spend too much money, but to tamper and then say you can't punish us, otherwise we'll tear football down. There needs to be a point when football stands up and says, "Do you know what? Just for threatening us, you can fuck off."
Would they
Like,
even be
that alone?
Would they even be able to force the sale? Because at the end of the day, they're the owners.
If you owned a business and you committed fraud, you would still get punished, and you wouldn't be able to run that business anymore. I don't know whether you'd have to liquidate it. I don't know whether you'd just have to pass it on for a set price. Maybe a tribunal could agree on a fair price to sell it, taking into consideration how much they paid, how much good they've actually done for the club, because they have done a lot of good for the club, innit? They've made it a big team. And even if you take away the huge transfer fees and shit, they've still got one of the best academies in the world, the best training ground in the world. So, as well, is I think that the contract's tied to the owners and not City. So if the owners went, I don't think City would have access to any of the facilities.
Can you buy shares in City?
I don't know.
A public limited company?
I don't think so. I think it's only in Germany that teams are like that. But by law, at least 10 or 20% of the club has to be owned by fans, which makes a lot of sense.
What, in Germany?
Yeah. But Germany are good because they understand it's their religion, so they look after it.
But the problem with a situation like this is the fans aren't gonna.
Well, I talk to people about it. People say, "Oh, well, Liverpool bought Alisson for 70 million," and I'm like, I'm not sure you're getting. There's fraud. There's being one of the biggest clubs in the world.
Yeah.
You can't. If they were challenging for titles beforehand, I think it would be a lot more difficult to pin the success on the cheating. But considering that they wouldn't have got to the point of even attracting someone like De Bruyne, someone like Guardiola, and then
even
after
Robinho
that,
back in the day.
Exactly. Well, yeah, the week
That's
that
when
they
it all
got
started,
bought,
didn't it?
they
Yeah.
bought Robinho, snatched him off Chelsea, and I think the famous press conference quote from Robinho is that he thought he was in London. because he didn't even know.
No way.
yeah.
And both their fans came from Chelsea, just putting that out there.
Yes. Yeah, there is a bit of a conspiracy that all the Chelsea glory hunters are now City fans. Especially on Twitter. Honestly, there's
We
more
should do an
City fans.
expose.
Yes. All the anonymous City accounts on Twitter.
All I'm saying is I've seen Frank Lampard in a City shirt, so.
Well, that was like the first big deal with their sister clubs, because he was signed for New York City, which they own, and agreed to play for City until the American season started back up again. So that's a positive that you can get if you own a couple of teams, whether it's right or wrong. Things like that can happen when older players want to go to a weaker league for a little while. You can sort of nice them up. You can sort of get them into like Patrick Vieira started coaching in New York. He's now part of City's staff, etc., etc. So for the development of individuals, for the stuff like that, there is a lot of positives with that, and I don't particularly think they should be punished for the City football group thing. I think what we've got to bear in mind is we're talking about way over 2 billion. Probably nowhere near that much back in cash. If they sold up, they could probably get towards that, but that's not how profit works. It's not against your value, it's against what you've sold and taken in, etc. But yeah, 100% they shouldn't be allowed to own Manchester City. When I think about the questions that would be asked back, and the reasons why, if you had to give legal reasons why, they can't be trusted. They literally cannot be trusted, even whilst in investigations going on. 2, they threatened to sue UEFA because City broke UEFA's rules. They were quite clear. It took years for FFP to come into play, so teams had time to prepare for it. And even then, it wasn't enough because they hadn't cheated their way into a gap between them and the other teams. It was still competitive, so they carried on cheating. They're coming up with sister companies, Fordham Sports, which basically their mate gives them money and then they just send the money back at the start of the next year. And shit, they're basically getting loans from mates, selling players' rights to companies that don't stand to make any profit off of it. That, in my opinion, is purposefully in football up because you think you've seen, like any venture capitalist, they've seen something that someone else hasn't used to exploit, and they've thought, we can exploit that and make a bit of money out of it. And I think we do need to get to a sort of position like Germany is in, where it's straight up like the NHS. It's ours. It looks after us. It's what we invest our money into. So there should be no debate over whether someone else can buy it and sell it back to us. And football is a similar product. Football's the healthcare, and the football teams are the NHS. They're the clubs that provide us with our entertainment, etc., etc. So we need to start valuing football like that, and instead of sort of this whole, it's dog eat dog world, you know what I mean? Someone else should have come up with the idea first and that. We need to sort of separate that attitude from sport, because sport is sport, and it's dying out like a lot of other things are, like all forms of art on a mainstream level are. It's having the soul ripped out of it, and this rips the soul out of football. And yeah, I personally, so they can't be trusted. They've threatened UEFA. They've actually spoken about avoiding rules. They've committed fraud, and I personally can never remember a case of this happening in sport, and it's going to set a very bad precedent. Because you imagine, I don't know, say if you support, let's take Margate, Gillingham, local teams. They could see that and think, so we can cheat our way to the top. We can win Premier League titles and challenge for Champions League titles, and all we've got to do is sit it out for 2 years. The amount of, like, it would be a punishment if you're talking about Arsenal or Liverpool or Man United, because they are Champions League teams, always have been. So if you take them out, that before the owners came in, they would have been challenging for it anyway. But City weren't challenging for the Champions League. So if it, again, I'll say it, without the cheating, none of it happens. And that's, to me, that makes me feel a little bit disgusted that other teams are going to see this and just be like, it's worth the fucking fine, isn't it? Like, we're a shit team. We're never going to challenge for the Champions League. But if we cheat, we can get to that level, sit it out, but we'll be in the Prem, making the top dollar, getting 170 million broadcasting rights every year. Do you know what I mean? That now, you've just sort of encouraged people to do that.
You know what? The fact they did it just in broad daylight as well. Like, we've actually watched this happen in football for the last how many years?
Yeah.
They've actually seen it happen. A club that's like,
Yeah,
no fans.
we've all
You've got no
been saying
fans, you've got no brand.
Yeah.
No, but we've seen it go from that to
and
actually
in 12
like...
years, they just
That's
go,
mad.
oh, well, you probably won't qualify for it, so you can just sit that tournament out next year and we'll fine you. Do you know what I mean? They could sell a player that they never play and get that 20 million back and save his wages. Do you know what I mean? It's nothing. This is nothing money.
Anything been said before as well? Like, surely that should have been nipped in the bud from early. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just happened so slowly and so like sneaky the way they've done it all.
But doesn't it worry you that it would have been because UEFA was genuinely scared of the threats against its
Sounds like they
existence?
are.
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me
Sounds
if they
like
were.
it is.
Well, that's the thing. You've not just got a rich businessman after. You've got the owner of a country.
Royal.
Yeah,
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 royal,
yeah.
yeah,
A
royal.
Been
government.
allowed to buy it in the first place, bro. and
No,
haven't
no.
be
You
having this
can't.
conversation,
You can't
innit?
have countries
No.
buying football teams in Western countries to boost their reputation because they're such a bad government. Like, it's so wrong. I'm trying to think of another example, but I don't think there's
Trains.
ever been anything. Huh?
Our trains, our railways.
Well, yeah, exactly. And things like that. The fact that EDF subsidised the French taxpayer. So they get money back from how much we use our own energy.
Yeah. It's mad.
It's incredible. But yeah, in sport, I don't think I can even think of an example where a country has bought a team to boost its own PR image and is willing to be known outright and publicly as cheats and to threaten the whole thing that holds football together. I honestly, I can't think of... Even Donald Trump's presidential campaign was like less about destruction. Do you know what I mean?
To be honest as well, I can't even think of another country that would just allow that to happen.
Like, trying to do that in-
There's no other country in the world that would look at that and... but the thing is because they're so desperate for the reputation boost, because without it they won't get voted back in, etc, and all of that shit, and it can be quite dangerous for ex-government officials and things like that in countries where they have abused the public so much. But yeah, any other country would look at that and go, well, so what? You'd make a bit of money out of it. You can make a bit of money buying shares. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to do it like that. You can improve your reputation by being better on human rights, etc. Like, could you imagine if, because of the whole what we done to Iraq, we bought an Iraqi team and was just like Union Jacks everywhere and like just
Yeah,
basically
imagine.
trying to make them like us more and shit. It would be fucked up. Like, it's wrong. This isn't just a little mini industry that deserved to kick up his arse and a bit of sort of evolution. This is football. This ain't a business for you to come in and take all the money from. This is why people don't like Man United's owners, because they riddle the club with debt. All of the fans and everyone else misses out, and they just siphon off profits back to America. And I mean, the sort of, I say, the Germany model is very... It's almost like they are nationalised teams, essentially. And like the profits go back into the club or into the community and shit like that. And to be fair, saying that, City have done a lot of community work and shit like that. But as soon as you find out why they've done
Is
it,
that
it sort of
just the
takes
front?
away from... Yeah. Oh, so you just threw some pennies at the peasants. And the peasants see pennies and go, I've never had a penny. But to you, that was just in the bottom of your back pocket.
Yeah.
And,
Like
yeah.
Balotelli and that kid that you're going and picked up in his car.
yeah. No, big up Balotelli though. Best player in the world.
Fireworks off in a hotel room.
I don't. Apparently, the school thing isn't true, but he said it wasn't true, but everyone else is saying that it was.
Just give context on that. Like,
Oh, well, basically, he saw a kid out during school hours, supposedly picked him up and took him back to the school, walked him back into the school, took him to the head teacher and said, you should be teaching this kid a bit better and stuff like that. And, I mean, working class hero Mario. And, yeah,
Mario the
what was
plumber.
the fireworks thing?
Oh,
He's setting off fireworks in his house.
In a hotel room, I heard.
No, it's his house, I think.
Both.
But,
I miss
Crazy
him
Mario.
actually, do you know what? I miss Balotelli.
What happened to him?
Yeah.
He's just fucking
He's
crazy, bro.
he was playing for Brescia in Serie A, Italian league, but they're looking to sell him. And there was someone that there might have even been an English team that are interested in bringing him back. But yeah, we kind of personally, on the side note, we do miss football. Mysteriously lacks Mavericks right now. Where's the Eric Cantonas?
yeah.
The long haired brashy. I ain't running. Just give me the fucking ball. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, but the thing is,
The Roy
He's got a bunch of
Keanes.
Yeah.
fucking pantomimes
the old
with him.
school Herzls, essentially, isn't it? Like, do you know what I mean? Like the Totties, do you know what I mean? The fucking the gods, the gods. Like,
Well, I think because these players are getting so much money at so young, they, in their head, they become a superstar,
takes the soul out
and
of the
then
game.
they just, I don't know, they like look at someone like, what's his name, Rashford,
Yeah,
like the guy's
improving. Big contract.
yeah, you know,
Yeah,
decline like
Walcott.
fucking Sanchez. Like
Yeah.
Sanchez was like amazing
Yes.
at Arsenal.
Yes.
As soon as he went to Man U, got his what?
What's the point in trying?
350 a
Like,
week.
Yeah, fuck it. You sell me at the end of the season. I've made more than enough money.
Exactly.
See, the thing is, it's like money has kind of destroyed football
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we wouldn't even be having this discussion if there wasn't so much money in football.
Mhm.
And like you look at the players, and it's just it's the same everywhere.
Yeah.
Like even like I've never been to a proper football match, but I know the price of season tickets and stuff is
Yeah.
unreal.
Yeah.
Absolutely
It's
unreal.
crazy.
Especially at Arsenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oi, Kroenke.
Yeah. If
Yeah,
you're listening.
Kroenke, fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like,
Take
so
your money and wrap up.
how are you going to charge your fans that kind of money just to come and see a team that they fully support with all of their heart?
Just so
like
you
saying,
can
it's-
make a little extra
exactly,
bit of money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, so you were saying it's like a religion.
Yeah.
Right? Imagine now the churches kind of prey on that and start charging you $3,000
Yeah.
every season to come and pray every Sunday or come to Sunday service.
Subscription service.
Yeah, a subscription service to the church. It's a
Yeah.
similar kind of thing like that. Obviously, it's different because it's a sport, but it's the same premise. And it's like
Yeah.
you're kind of taking advantage of people's passion for the sport.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a big one. It does take away the passion because you watch games and you almost concede to the fact that the richer team's going to win. And if you have taken a bit of time out from football, it also puts you off getting back into it because it just seems like it's almost scripted because it all just depends on who your owners are and stuff.
Well, I mean, even with like because I'm an Arsenal fan, like we're literally. I allow it, G. We're suffering right now.
No, you're getting
But-
better.
Yeah, no, we're getting better, but like even with like talking about how you kind of concede to these richer teams, like we're all going through these financial issues with the whole stadium and stuff, and then it was just kind of like, oh, everyone else is just including this is the time when City are spending their absolute highest. We're just sitting there like, oh well.
Got a couple of decent
We're
youngsters.
just poor right now, and that's
Yeah.
it. Even though we're one of the richest clubs in the world,
Yeah.
we're just poor right now, and we just got to accept
business
that.
is more important than football.
Exactly.
And the wider world has just accepted it. It's just, I mean, I think we were talking about it that with politics a couple of episodes ago, how things that shouldn't be right become that's the way it is before anyone's even actually questioned it.
Yeah.
And it's just like
And then it's just accepted.
yeah. Like I saw a mail on Football 365 from basically on Football 365 every day. They do in the morning, afternoon, and evening, like fan mail. So you write in, and then someone will reply to your email and shit like that. And he was saying, he was like, I'm a City fan. I look at this website every day. I know for a fact I am the first ever Man City fan to put my hands up, and after this ban, admit that it's just fucking plain wrong. But because of the tribalism in football, a City fan won't ever listen to you if you don't support City, or if you support another Prem team. It's just you're just saying that because
you're anti that team.
Yeah. What is anti-football? Everything's like this nowadays, and you think that's not a reason why you should do it. That's an observation. We're not asking for you
Just
to tell me
becomes a
what they're
deflection
doing. We know
tactic.
they're fucking exactly. It's all deflection, and if you deflect something enough times, if you deflect a bullet enough times, it starts to slow down, and then it sort of just gets lost
Yeah.
and has no effect.
Matrix.
Yeah, everything relates. Epstein.
It all comes back.
Honestly, it would not. Like, I think we say it every episode with whoever we're talking about, but it would not shock me if it turned out that Epstein was secretly their financial advisor or something.
Sean Atwood, please look into this.
Yeah.
Oh, City. City.
City.
City.
Oh. We're gonna go from something sporting,
Sporty Spice.
yes, to something. Straight up, it is quite sad. Obviously, you know about the death of Caroline Flack this week. From what it's seen so far, suicide.
Have they said how she died? Yet?
No, I haven't seen anywhere that's like official. It's just been assumed. So I mean, you never fucking know.
Epstein.
Yeah. She could have known some Schofield secrets. But I don't know if you know much about the case, and I thought I had a pretty clear idea of the case. Had like a talk with my bird, and my bird was like, "No, hang on, it weren't like that." So I thought I'll give it a little Google, and it's actually quite fucking shameful what's happened.
What happened?
Basically, from the start, it all kicked off because of an assault on her boyfriend, Lewis Burton, pro tennis player. This was 12th of December. She was arrested for it.
Wasn't it because he cheated or something?
I don't know what he'd done.
Like, I heard. I'm probably chatting shit, but I had heard he cheated, and then she got mad about that or something, and then it all kicked off, and then she ended up
hitting him with a lamp.
Throwing the lamp.
That's what I knew.
I heard
as
that
the
she
whole
hit him over the head when he was asleep.
Yeah, see,
What?
yeah, see, yeah. But I don't think that's how it went at all, which I was really shocked at.
Well, we was meant to find all that out in the court case.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so she was charged with assault, pleaded not guilty. The boyfriend backed her the whole way, said she hadn't done anything wrong. It also, it's kind of mad. She'd hurt herself during the argument, so she had lost her temper and that. She was going crazy.
just to give a bit of context, I was actually looking into this. It's when you have something like a domestic abuse case, because you were saying that the boyfriend didn't want to go ahead and press charges.
Yeah.
Well, basically, because of obviously like Stockholm syndrome and those sort of things, basically when it comes to the incident happening and you reporting it to the police, what they'll do is, if you go ahead and press charges in that first instance, so if they turn up and he says to them, "She fucking hit me with a lamp," he's got a big old mark on his head, then what they're going to do is take that as, okay, this is, something's happened
We'll take
to
it off
something
of you
happened,
and
something's
deal with
happened,
it.
something's happened to you, and
You're
you're
scared.
saying this, and so when it comes to in the future, when the case is coming forwards, you might be sitting there going, "Oh, that's my wife. I don't want her to. I love her. Blah blah blah."
He doesn't really treat me like that.
But the police are actually what they're meant to do is take the case for what it is and then look into it further. So even if he comes forwards and says, "I don't want to press charges," they'll disregard.
So
that
he's not allowed
because-
to drop the case at all.
No, he's not.
That's
allowed
the
to
thing.
drop it.
That's the police become the ones that prosecute.
Well, this is it.
Yeah,
CPS.
exactly.
The
Yeah.
CPS agreed to drop it.
The victim can end up going to the court case as a witness
Yeah.
as the crime against them.
Mm-hmm.
They can go as a witness of, even though they're the victim, because they're
Yeah.
not prosecuting.
Yeah.
Shit.
So it's not actually. So the husband might not even be the prosecution.
No.
I feel like a lot of people get that confused.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that law has saved a lot of people's lives.
Exactly. You'll get a lot of like battered wives and even battered husbands who
Don't want to. They know that they should send them down, but they look at them.
and they even
can't
look
do
at
it.
even because of their kids. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't want my kid to grow up 2 years without a dad or
Well,
something.
mate, I'm not
and-
being funny, but like, if my bird beat me up like badly in that, I still wouldn't want her to go to prison because there'd always be that. Oh, she wouldn't last in there. Like, I can't. You got two wrongs don't make a right and shit like that. And they get away with a violent attack.
Yeah.
And so, generally, I think it's quite a good law.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
But maybe this is brought up that there should be some nuance to it.
No, but
Because
that's the
a
thing, if
one-off
he's- if-
incident and something goes flying across the room, you shouldn't really be going down for that.
No, but this is what I mean. So in the instance that he's now called the police and said this is wrong, that is wrong,
Yeah.
that is when it then becomes
He didn't
a
call
case.
the police though. This is the thing.
Who did?
The neighbours called the police because they heard it all, and near enough all of the blood there was hers. She smashed the bottle in anger and cut herself, and that's why it looked like it had been such a savage attack, sort of thing. So there's even really a dispute as to whether it was as simple as sort of, did you cheat on me or whatever? Yeah, with a lamb. It sounded like she was having a tantrum, maybe throwing things around and that, more so than them actually having it out. And yeah, because I always thought he called the police. That's what I always was told.
Yeah.
But apparently it wasn't him. Or he might have called the police once the police had already been called, but he was actually calling for an ambulance. And they called an ambulance to the house and they'd say, oh, we've just got a domestic call. We'll send police and ambulance.
Well, what I was saying is, once they get there, once he then gives them a statement,
They take control
that's
of it.
then
Yeah.
that's then written into the case.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
then evidence for the case. Even if
Yeah.
he comes back and says,
No,
"Oh,
no,
it was
that
a lie,"
never happened. Yeah.
It's now
too late.
evidence for the case. So it either goes to A, she gets put away, or B, he gets done for wasting police time.
Yeah.
One of the two, innit?
Yeah.
So obviously it all depends on who's guilty, who's not. But just because he's coming out and saying, "No, I don't want to press charges," doesn't mean it's not going to go
Yeah.
ahead.
And also, even if he said something that that would help in her defence, if the police are the ones pushing the charges, the police can't use them statements to help her. So when the policeman tells you anything you do say may be given in evidence,
Yeah.
it may harm your defence. It doesn't ever say it can help your defence.
Yeah.
That's why I'll never chat to police,
Yeah.
because they can't actually help you.
Yeah, any good lawyer will tell you whether
Never
you've done
chat to 'em.
something or not done something. You don't.
Do
you
not
don't
chat
have
to them,
tell
mate, because they can't help you.
Yeah, that is it.
They tell you that they can't help you when they do it.
Yeah. It's written in the constitution.
So more about the case.
Yeah, but what makes me feel like there already is nuance to the law is the fact that the CPS initially agreed to drop the charges, spoke to all the parties, spoke to the police, agreed it was a one-off thing. They're better off mentally getting on with their lives. But senior police officers pushed for the case to carry on. That kind of makes me feel like it was a bunch of middle-aged white blokes finally getting a case where the bloke's the victim and they didn't want to let it go.
And it's a high profile
See,
case.
Exactly.
yeah, I
So
think
they're
it's-
going to
I
use that
think-
as a, don't you worry, we all these men that are getting abused, we'll
Well,
stick up for you.
it's reputation
Yeah,
leverage, isn't
yeah.
it?
And the police do it so much. They love to use scapegoat cases. They love it.
Once it's in law, any other case that comes after that looks at previous cases,
precedent.
so it's a precedent for that.
Same with Man City.
Yes,
Precedent.
exactly,
Precedent.
exactly. it's set a new set of rules.
Same with Epstein and the kids.
Yeah.
No, honestly,
Well, literally,
sweetheart. Honestly,
literally
look at the
until they
sweetheart
arrest
deal.
Prince Andrew, that is exactly what they've done.
Mm.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, even the first bit with the whole
The first case.
case. But yeah, anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
Pandora's
Did
box.
you know that you can not go to prison for raping children? Apparently, if your name's different, no. Shouldn't. It's serious stuff.
It's very
Yeah.
bad.
Heart goes out to the victims. Isn't
Yeah.
it?
If you don't know, look into the first court case.
2007,
2007 court case. Yeah, it's
interesting
Crazy.
as heel.
man,
Yeah.
it's mad.
It's probably more interesting than the death, really. Because
Just
like, the
as-
death's kind of obvious,
Yeah.
isn't it? If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The powers that be. So yeah, she'd hurt herself during the fight, and that was the main injury. That's why the ambulance was called. So he might have been thumped, but he was okay. He's a pretty big bloke, pro tennis player, so he's an athlete. He can handle it. Not that getting hit round the head with anything's okay, and I'm not saying that girls should get a lucky you get a smack before it's a legality or whatever. But she tells the police that night that she was going to kill herself as she was being arrested. And the boyfriend Lewis, once the case starts, shares a picture of the bed and, like I said, says, "Bullshit. This isn't my blood, and I didn't get hit over the head with a lamp. Can everyone stop now?" And that was on his social media. "She's fucking harmless and the most amazing person I have ever met." And shortly after the death, he wrote, "My heart is broken. We had something so special. I'm so lost for words. I'm in such pain. I miss you so much. I know you felt safe with me. You always said I don't think about anything else when I'm with you. And I was not allowed to be there this time. I kept asking and asking. I will be your voice, baby. I promise I will ask all the questions you wanted, and I will get all the answers. Nothing will bring you back, but I will try and make you proud every day. I love you with all my heart."
So by the sounds of it, it's not even him versus her domestic
They wanted
case.
nothing to
This
do
is
with
a
it.
this is a police wanting to.
They had an argument. She hurt herself, and they saw that and thought, "Ooh,
Big high profile,
we can
let's run with
spin
this."
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like technically, if he's never said, which he has said, he said that he's never said about getting hit round the head with a lamp, is that someone at the scene made that up.
Mm.
Reporters didn't just make it up. Reporters tell lies that they've been told. They don't make up the lie.
Mm.
It doesn't work like that, innit? If you get a quote from an unnamed source, you won't get in trouble. But if you come out and say, "I think this happened," then you're vulnerable to libel, whatever. So.
And that's the last opinion we give on the Yak Chat.
It's over now. It's done.
So if he didn't hit her over the head, if she didn't hit him over the head and someone's made that up, then someone must be going down for perverting the cause of justice.
Who said that?
Who? Was it this? Is it the senior police officers that are pushing for the charges? Because
But now the case has been dropped, so they're not going to look into it.
That's the end of it.
Yeah,
Oh, that's fucked.
yeah. It's
That's
sad. It's
fucked.
fucking sad, man. But apparently, what I can gather at the moment, obviously, it's still all up in the air. We don't even know how she did it, if she did it on purpose, anything like that. But she was apparently distraught at the idea of a video of her from the body cam footage would be shown to the court and therefore the world, because it's a public, basically a show trial.
They're not allowed to do that in the UK, though, are they?
What? With
I don't think they was allowed cameras or anything in the courtroom. So how would that get out?
Body cam of what they had when they got to the scene.
And she was,
Yeah, but,
she was scared.
the only people that would see that are the people that are
Yeah,
at the
she
trial.
was scared that it would get leaked,
Right.
if you know what I mean. I've lost my bloody page. So yeah, that's what she was scared of, and she just received news of how the trial was gonna go. I think that day or a few days before, and that's what set her back off. I guess the panic that she's never gonna work again because she's gonna be stood there covered in her own blood, probably
A mess.
do you know what I mean? A girl that you only ever seen done up, seen in that sort of state, is a huge chink in like the media armour.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, imagine if something like that happened to Holly Willoughby, she wouldn't be presenting This Morning. After this court case, ITV might have had to have dropped her and shit like that, because it was just such a... People don't want to be reminded of that whole incident whenever they see her and shit like that.
Well, they don't want that attached to their brand.
Exactly. And yeah. And so I can definitely see where that would have triggered her into a panic almost. But I just want to ask myself and you and the listeners, everybody, that people again are using an event, a public event, to bring in laws that affect people like us rather than the media. So
Well, they're even trying to cancel Love Island.
well, yeah,
And
but
are they really anything to do with it?
everyone on the news is talking about that they should ban anonymous accounts and shit like that online, and this is what I mean. Just, do you remember the
Well,
Snoopers charter?
they think it's all of the trolls that...
Do you remember the
cause
Snooper charter? The thing
No.
that Theresa May brought in, where they can
Explain-
look through your
explain what
internet
it is,
history and shit. Basically, they found out that people were getting groomed by extremists online through Xbox, etc., etc. So they used that.
It all comes back to terrorism.
Yeah,
doesn't
so
it?
they basically used that as an excuse. They're getting to your kids online, so you need to give us the rights to all of your internet history, your privacy. We can access your data now for free, etc., etc. And they can do that legally, and they need near no proof, evidence, or case to do it. It's just completely opened it up, and they basically painted that as a version, as a thing to keep us safe on the internet, when all it's really done is made us more susceptible to spying.
Mate, it's the same as stop and search with Rastas in the 80s. Like,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
same
yeah, yeah.
Law, innit?
It
They
does-
say it's to prevent crime, but it's just...
it doesn't
Pretty much
actually prevent crime.
George
all
Orwell's
it does is
Big Brother.
instigate. Yeah.
There's
exactly.
a reason. There's always a reason that sounds good, and then there is the real reason.
Yeah, exactly.
ultimately.
And they've seen this and thought, basically everyone online was going, the fucking media, the mainstream media, the tabloids, they've all fucking done this, because she knew that picture of her covered in blood would be the front page the next day, etc., etc. And everyone on mainstream media and in the tabloids and on the news is turning around and saying, it's all of those
trolls.
people online, the trolls,
the
etc.,
trolls.
etc.
They love that word. Because the word troll scares old people.
Yeah,
Yeah, trust me.
yeah. It makes it seem like so much more sinister
Yeah.
and shit like that.
And who's setting these laws as well?
Exactly.
People that don't actually understand it.
Exactly.
That's the issue.
People that don't get the internet.
I think the thing is, if you're a celebrity, you've got to expect to get this kind of thing online. So don't have a social media account. It's as simple as that. And as horrible as that is, they might not get to have that, but they're a celebrity, so you're not seen as the general public.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you'll have someone that runs your Instagram or your Twitter or something like that. If that's the case, don't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're being cyberbullied, delete your account or block them. It's like, and
Yeah.
obviously as a celebrity, you're going to get thousands of people
You
like.
signed up for that.
Yeah,
If you're going to be
that's it.
trying to be a
Once
public
you become a celebrity or a public figure, you belong to the public, and I think that's
Yeah.
what a lot of celebrities miss.
Because
They-
they've got
they
to remember
forget
that
that.
they don't earn the money that they earn.
No.
Like, any one of us could do most of the jobs in media if you had a month's training. In terms
Real
of
talk.
presenting and stuff like that. Like, they're not coming up with their own content. It's not their own shows that
No.
they have to write every week.
They're just
They
the
just
face.
turn up and read the teleprompter and go, that's it. That's it. They're just smiley faces
Yeah.
that people can look at for long enough that they don't get turned off the programme.
Mate, have you ever seen them like presenters in real life as well? Like seconds before they go on air.
No.
We all got told to piss off basically by Polly Evans, the news reporter at the Kent show. Yeah, she was like, right, get out of the way, come on.
Yes, that Ian Dale, the one that stormed off of Good Morning Britain the other day because he didn't come with any fucking stats to back his claims up, as per right-wing commenters. And he stormed off and shit like that, saying, "Oh, there's no room for debate in British politics anymore," and shit like that. There's a video of him at Labour conference 4 years ago. He was filming a report, and someone was standing behind him with a placard because there was a protest going on, and it's an old bloke. And I swear to God, he literally throws the old bloke to the floor to get him to get off the back of the camera and that. And then, like you say, onto the camera, "Hey," and everybody, yeah, we're all friends and we're just nice people. And it's, yeah, makes me sick, I tell you. Makes me sick.
Well, I think that's what Jonathan Pye sort of satirizes, like the fact, because he's always like, "Oh, and the general election's on its way."
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on?
Yeah. He's nailed it, Jonathan Pye. That single video setting where he's just on like the things of Parliament and that. Yeah. Big up Jonathan Pye.
So what more about Caroline?
Yes.
Yeah, where's the safeguarding as well for mental health there?
Well, this is it. Someone on telly.
If you're a
saying,
criminal, fair enough, and you should be investigated. But
Yeah.
where's the safeguarding for like mental health and?
Yeah. Well, this is it. Like the point that you made about them signing up to it. That also means that social care, healthcare should be signed up to the fact that that's a specific case. Say if my mom was a proper drinker, that would be factored into any mental health help that I receive. Should they factor in the fact that every single decision that person makes is going to be shown to the world every day? Shouldn't that be factored in? So like when you have these public trials and shit like that, should that not be what the secret courts are used for and shit like that? And is it okay like to give them more help than it is a normal person just because of their job?
See, it's blurred
It's
lines
quite
though, isn't
hard,
it? Because then that would kind of suggest favouritism.
Yeah, exactly.
to an
Yeah, we
extent.
can't get any mental health help, but if you're on telly every
Yeah,
week,
yeah.
you get the fucking top.
I personally think that mental health aspect should be provided by the television
Mate,
company. I think
ITV,
I think part of your
big
contract should be, if things do end up going south in whatever way, we will provide you X amount of this. Like, do you know what I mean?
It's the
At least
third
provide
person.
provide some sort of, as thin as it might be, some sort of safety net for these people who are putting their livelihoods out there on the telly. Because put it this way, you get 100 cars and people can slate every car, but you've only got one body. You're only one person. So as soon as
you can't change that.
Exactly. So if you look at, take this to Caroline now, she's sitting there saying, "Oh, my one persona, the Love Island girl, the sweet,
how I get my work,
the nation's sweetheart, is now this bloody mess, violent, blah blah blah."
And,
she's sitting there, well, like, the only thing I have going for me at age 30, whatever,
is that I used to be on.
Is
telly.
that I used to be that girl. I used to be. Now I'm the violent girl. I'm this. I'm that. And so
the only thing you could get is probably Big Brother. After that,
yeah, exactly. And even that's
true though.
But even that's going to be met with she's going to deal with stuff from that as well.
Yeah,
I think all these reality TV shows, because there's like
third person from Love Island that's committed suicide.
The saddest thing about it as well is that the precedent that would have been set by that court case is not going to necessarily affect celebrities in every day. It's going to affect the families of certain people that. Do you know what I mean? If that happened in a family that, I don't know, you've got 2 young kids and like no one knows who they are, they're not celebrity.
Well, that's it. What if they had kids, man? And they just, for the sake of proving a point, they push someone to the point of.
But where's the mental health, where's the help and precautions for people that aren't like in high profile cases as well? Like you've got to remember, this is law that will go into precedent that will affect every. Do you know what I mean?
She didn't get the help. A normal person wouldn't have been getting any help, and that's going on every single day. Every day.
That's the thing. All these cases that we end up talking about, it's not necessarily a scrutinise of the person or the case. It's more of a analysis that uncovers the veil on what's actually going on across the board.
The system of it,
Yeah, I think
and whether we need to reevaluate our laws and our values
in general. Yeah.
Not
That's
just it's like,
not just
like it's
little
not just
tiny ones.
ITV. It's not just
It's
it's
not
not
just
just
Love
that.
Island.
It's not just-
yeah.
But I think the biggest conversation to come out of this that everyone else except for the media is talking about is the tabloids.
Yes.
And because I've been thinking about this a lot, because obviously I've seen a lot of talk online about all this situation and everyone getting at the tabloids. The one sort of at the top of the roster that everyone's talking about at the moment is the shit cunt Sun.
Yeah, that's what we call the Sun. Here,
The shit cunt Sun. But
Big up Klopp for not talking to them as well.
Yeah,
big up Klopp.
Liverpool,
But-
best city in the world, mate. The
but
Sun ain't
they-
allowed in there.
But so we're highlighting the Sun, and everyone's talking about the Sun, and
The what?
that's the shit cunt Sun, and then we look at their owner, Rupert motherfucker Murdoch.
Yeah, motherfucking murder.
So we look at Rupert motherfucking Murdoch, and do you know what I saw?
I
Do you know
was
what-
gonna say.
Do you know what I saw when it was in the peak of these Australian bushfires and that? Sky News Australia, owned by Murdoch,
Mhm.
are putting out global warming claims.
Yeah.
Calling
the
calling all of David Attenborough's work shit because he got one little fact wrong
Yeah.
about some sea lions.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous, and fair enough, you can have your opinion, but there gets to a point where
They control
You're not even-
people's views.
you're
now.
controlling people's views, and what they're doing is they're installing ideologies into more susceptible people who aren't going to go and do the extra research.
Yeah.
And then what that does is messes up the politics.
Mhm.
So now you've got this fucking so let's talk about Australia now. There might be a farmer whose whole thing's been burnt, but because he might not be the most literate person, he's then sitting there looking at the most credible news source, Sky News Australia,
It's the fucking student
and
protesters.
they're saying that global warming doesn't exist.
Yeah.
He can be looking at his house at the fire that's just torn through. He hasn't got any sheep left or nothing. His whole thing has been fucked up. But because he's not literate enough,
Yeah.
he then thinks that it's not global warming.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, the point I want to get across to this, and this is something I can't stress enough, and might even repeat it twice. Where's the how do we hold these guys accountable?
Yeah.
Where's the repercussions of these things? Because you going out and saying that global warming isn't happening, for example, let's take it back to the situation. You put in 100 things about Caroline Flack. You put in 100 things about Meghan Markle and nothing about Middleton. So all these sort of situations are fucking up people's lives in the millions.
Yeah.
To the point of even to do with Corbyn and
Yeah.
Zionism and Israel
sorts.
and all of that.
All sorts.
Wars,
Rewriting history.
literal wars. They're rewriting history, and like I said, you can have your opinion, but when there's no repercussions for damaging opinions,
Mhm.
and when these damaging opinions are put across,
Where do you think it's going to end up?
it's what I wanted to ask is how are we going to stop it? How are we going to stamp this out? Because it seems like right now, the only way we can stamp this out is people like us sitting here and using the internet to combat the real world,
Yeah.
the newspapers, the
Yeah.
tabloids. How else are we going to how else are we going to tackle it? And the only way we can tackle it is
bloody
this.
buying it, you old farts.
Yeah, stop buying it.
Like,
stop
stop,
fucking
like,
buying
you
it. Stop even
literally-
reading the.
Yeah.
Stop even when you. Okay, put it this way: when you go on Facebook and you see one of these articles, do not click on it because that click gives them money. That click gives them money. Just that one click you do. You saw the headline. You wanna. These newspapers, you at home are contributing just by clicking on it. You might even be sitting there going, even we're responsible for this. We can be sitting there going, what do they mean with this headline? That's 0.01p in their bank account. Do you know what I'm saying? And then that slowly adds up, and
Well, they said with
we're all responsible. Like, how are we gonna have ITV sitting there talking about trolls and that?
Yes, but that's they were literally doing it on ITV, Good Morning Britain,
And then
they're
after
sitting
that
blaming us.
but they do that and then say, oh, we love Caroline.
Oh mate, don't
Shut the
don't,
fuck up. You
don't,
can't say
don't.
you love Caroline when you're actually aiding the people who.
Yeah, your friends work at the papers that were just lying about them. And
It's like I saw a post on her the other day, like from when they were slating her, and it was just fucking. It was ridiculous.
Pure
like, it was
character
literally
assassination.
It was literally like they had a picture of her with a handbag, and they'd like done a diagram around her and like pointed stuff out, like to the point of like slagging off her shoes and her handbag and the blouse she was wearing,
but
and her
idiots
hair,
read that and they go.
Can I just say?
And they can't see past the little mind tricks.
Can I just
They
say
can't
That's
get past
complete
that.
complete plagiarism of Diane Abbott. Like,
Yes.
literally every
Yes.
single thing you just said there
she
is
had
plagiarism,
a
bro.
diabetic
Like,
episode, got a number wrong, but that's not as bad as people in government never getting the numbers
No, but
right.
it's the thing about her
And now
shoes as well.
Yeah,
like,
a photoshopped image, and like I said, there's still like, not to make it about wings, it's just that's who they are. You still get right-wing YouTubers using that picture, and it was photoshopped. It was a made-up lie, but because it gets round and it becomes a thing, it doesn't even matter if it's true or not.
I think-
It doesn't matter whether she hit the bloke round the head with a lamp. She's an attacker now.
I think one of the main problems we have as well is the lack of impartialness from these tabloids.
Yeah.
Is the fact that we can have even the and
It's just Murdoch's
let's bring it up
opinion.
again.
It's just his
Murdoch's
opinion.
It's Murdoch's opinion.
Yeah.
But even to bring it as high as what the BBC were doing in the election.
Yeah.
The fact that there's such impartialness, there needs to be some way of analysing it and governing it, because you can't just sit there and say 100 bad things about this one person, blowing stuff completely out of proportion, like talking about how Corbyn's an IRA member, even though it's being talked about. He's not. Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't
He's
think
not.
the
I mean,
BBC have ever mentioned that at the same time Corbyn met with Jerry Adams, Thatcher had already invited him into Parliament.
exactly, and they won't
They
talk
didn't
about
mention that. Isn't that in context?
But this
that's
is
a
the
good
thing. That context.
They remove context.
They
and
remove
suddenly
the
it's a different
context.
fact.
They remove the context and they remove the impartiality.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, where is the repercussions?
Yeah.
Where is the repercussions? Every single person who's high up in this country needs to be responsible.
do you know what? The only thing is though, if you start to govern it, and if you were to govern
Then
that in a way
body
that
becomes corrupt.
exactly,
Then
because
becomes
that body
corrupt.
then decides
You need-
what wing is that body on that
Yeah,
governs it, and
yeah.
how much do they hammer the other side.
Yeah.
other
After 10 years, they start to get their mates in, but what it is to take it out of those hands, people need to care enough. There needs to be a fucking cultural
revolution, bro.
yeah, and do you know how
generational awakening.
Do
That's what it
you know
needs
what
to
it is?
be.
Things like documentaries and that. If there
And
was
even this stuff.
yeah. If there
These
was a
conversations.
documentary with like the imagery, the sound, everything to invoke that feeling
The
of
surviving R. Kelly
they are
theme.
actually taking advantage of your thoughts. No, we're not saying that you're just stupid. We're saying that this is so fucking calculated that you can't think your way out of it, because everything's been a lie, if you know what I mean. And there needs to be some sort of overall look at the past 40 years where they pinpoint each moment that it slowly became worse and worse, and detail how Murdoch got control of these, detail etc. But people aren't interested because they think, well, I'm not fucking left wing, so I don't care, or I'm not right wing, so I don't care. And people have been tribalized to the point where they find comfort in the lies if it's about the other side.
Well, considering we're talking about precedents and that,
Yeah.
the fact that 5 years ago there was all these phone hacking scandals,
Yeah.
and let's
now,
be honest,
the bloke's
nothing
sitting on the most famous television program.
nothing
in the
came
country.
of it.
Yeah.
That has said quite a lot about what our government is going to do about these corrupt media
Yeah.
heads.
The
And
Leveson
the fact that
inquiry.
you can walk into any shop in the country and that will be blasted at you
Mhm.
is crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And the fact that nothing's done about it shows
Yeah.
that there is a problem
Yeah.
and we need a solution.
That's it. We need to look long and hard at ourselves. And a comment, it sounds random, but it always reminds me of a lot of things in this country and how we can get over it, past it, and stop these sort of suicides and shit happening. Is someone asked Dejan Lovren, the Liverpool centre back, why Croatia, such a tiny country, has such a good football team? And he said, in this area of Europe, we have deep, detailed conversations about everything. We don't like surface level analysis, and even at the dinner table, you will go in on things. And if you haven't learnt about it, you can't bring it to the table and shit like that. And there's such a culture on sort of philosophy, and that's what they say about English players going to foreign teams, don't understand any of the tactics, but a Spanish player that's never spoken English in his life can come here and understand the tactics because they've studied it from such a young age. It's normal to go deep into things, and Britain is like the opposite. If you want to go deep on something, you care too much about it, and things like
do your thinking for you.
yeah, and this is the thing, we're talking about Caroline Flack now, how serious it is, how they're genuinely hounding people into this sort of like sadness, depression, mental states and that, and it will be forgotten about because people don't want to think about it enough to care about it, because it doesn't affect their lives. We've got too much of that, like, oh, I'm alright, Jack's alright, so I'm alright, sort of thing. It doesn't matter that somebody else is going through that, because it probably won't happen to you. And I think that I really hope that, I mean, there is someone, I don't know if you've heard of Stephanie Davis. She's on Hollyoaks for ages. She's just always been like an actor on soaps and stuff like that. She went on Big Brother, and basically she was an absolute wreck. She like lied about what a boy said to her and stuff, and obviously it's Big Brother, so we hear every word.
Oh, was this the one where
They're slapping
she said that he abused me and there was all the
yeah,
crying?
yeah.
Oh my
And-
god!
But
she's
she's
a
come
bitch.
out. Yeah, that's the thing. That's what's made it hard for me, because I really just dislike her. But she put a video out, started a big petition, and basically she's come up with some things that she thinks should be enshrined in law or should be illegal. And she's put, and it's got over 600,000 signatures now, the petition, and releasing info that there is no evidence for and is therefore false should be illegal. Printing source quotes from anyone or an unreliable source should be illegal. Invading privacy and sharing private info that is detrimental to the celebrity, their mental health and those around them is illegal. Perhaps taking and printing images without permission, releasing an individual's private or health related info or sexual orientation, etc, etc. What if I told you it was illegal, and that these tabloids are in court near enough every week, or at the worst month, getting done for lying?
But you're
There's-
saying it actually is already
Yeah,
illegal?
they go to court and get beaten in court. But
Safe boy.
Sorry, boys.
That's
I'm gonna have
alright.
to shoot.
yeah, sweet man.
Safe man.
See you in a bit, boys.
Yeah, safe.
Safe my guy.
Good to see you, man. But yeah, basically,
Just us now.
but yeah, basically they I can't remember the exact numbers, but there's actually a chart and you can access it online when how many of the times the papers have been taken to court over lying and stuff.
Yeah.
So like, it is illegal, but very much like City, the punishments just don't ever amount. All they have to do is like put an apology in. But I could say that you're gay and put it on the front page, and if it's wrong, I can put it on page 23 right at the corner. Turns
Oh, I'm
out that Harry's
sorry.
not gay. Yeah, and nobody knows.
No one gives a
Nobody is
shit.
the wiser. But according to law, they've dealt with it.
Meanwhile, my day-to-day life
Everyone
is being
still walks up
affected.
to you and goes, "You're fucking, yeah."
Well, maybe not in 2020, but
Yeah, well, back in this,
Yeah,
back in
yeah.
the day when
But I get what you're
sexual
saying. I get
orientation
what you're saying.
was
Still,
something to sort of
well,
expose.
well, it is still.
Well, they
still
still-
it
they-
is still a subject, I guess.
Yeah, they
Well, I mean-
still use it to expose people and stuff, don't they? And that's the thing. It can be something as stupid
What
and
was the-
unimportant.
What
as,
was the things on the thing what was the
what she wants to be made illegal.
yeah because I wanted to say something about it.
Releasing info that there is no evidence for and is therefore false.
Oh, I remember what I was gonna say now.
Yeah.
Oh shit, sorry guys.
Ba-ding.
Yeah, I was like, because you were talking about unreliable sources and things like that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think one thing that needs to be looked at and stamped on is the whole an unnamed source.
Yeah.
What do you mean an
A
unnamed
number
source?
10 advisor.
A number
source.
10 advisor. Who's a number 10
Well,
advisor?
it's like during
An associate of no.
that
This
just means
all
someone
needs to be
standing
stamped out.
outside there.
I
Yeah.
could be a fucking representative
Yeah.
of fucking whoever.
If
Do
you
you know
never
what I mean?
have to name them, technically you could make it up.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. So these tabloids and that are gonna sit there and go, an unnamed source told us Caroline Flack did do it.
Yeah.
Blah blah. And they were very close, or a person close to the source.
That happened a lot with the Barrymore thing.
Bro, I could walk past the street and be close to you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? That doesn't make me a credible source. I think the only way you should be able to source what someone said or what someone thinks, or do you know what I mean? If the only way you'll be able to quote someone is by putting their name out there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put your name out there. If you're not willing to put your name out there, you shouldn't be willing to put your quote out there.
Yeah, because this is being put to the wider world.
Exactly.
This isn't just
Even
anecdotal conversations.
Even us sitting here now with these microphones, talking about a subject, no matter what it is, whether it's what we talked about last week, talked about this week, or whatever. The fact that we're sat here, putting our faces here,
Yeah.
makes us slightly more credible.
Mm-hmm.
Once our faces are covered like this, you don't know who it is.
You're not accountable.
I can sit there and say, oh yeah, I was with Boris Johnson last week and I saw him fucking murder someone from an unnamed source. And then what? And the only way you're not going to believe it is if the tabloid discredits you.
Do you remember?
But if the tabloid takes you, so now let's flip it on its head. I'm saying, I saw Corbyn murder someone last week. The tabloids who have the vested interests are going to go,
Fuck it, it's
an
worth getting
unnamed
found out in the future. We'll just
an
run with
unnamed
it.
source suspects,
Yeah.
blah blah blah, and then they use, and that's the thing, they dance around with these words, these allegedly
Law speak. It's law,
It's law
speak.
speak, and it's fucked up. And
Mm-hmm.
this is what I'm saying. There needs to be some sort of
We need to tear
something,
it down.
man. There needs to
we
be
need
something.
to stop funding it. We need to stop using it, and we need to create our own.
There needs to be
platforms
repercussions.
that are, from the start, accountable to the public.
I think a lot of these things, because going back to with even City,
Bro, if
and
Murdoch was in
things like
prison, if
this,
Piers Morgan was in prison,
I was
they
gonna
wouldn't still
say,
be fucking around.
this is what I was gonna say, that we shouldn't be punishing billionaires with millionaire punishments.
Yep. Yep.
We shouldn't be taking
Yeah.
bro.
Well, it's
Go
like this idea
take
that
a million off
billionaires
Jeff.
pay
Go take a
more.
million off Jeff Bezos.
Yeah,
It's not going to
exactly.
affect
Yeah,
him.
yeah, yeah,
But if
yeah.
you chuck Jeff Bezos in prison for 5 years,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's going to affect him.
Yeah.
I don't care if he's in some little sweetheart prison or whatever. The fact that he is getting sent away,
Well, even then,
at least that's even yeah.
can
That's
we not
that's another
force them-
conversation.
We should
but
force them to even
General
even if
population
they didn't
prison.
go into prison and they just have to go in a room where people can just sit there and absolutely fucking grill them,
Mm.
ask them whatever they want, shame them, whatever, fucking shout at them. But they need that, like, I think they're so far removed from the general
Yeah,
public that
totally.
they forget that we're all just normal
they
people.
need to be
and
brought
that.
back to reality.
Yeah,
by
yeah,
real people,
yeah.
because they get to this point where
Go sit in
they
a cell
become
with
a
someone
fucking-
that's in there because they had weed on them.
yeah.
Whilst you're in there because you've lied about and
Yeah,
spread it to
you've
the world. Like,
ruined
serious
as
crimes.
Rupert Murdoch. You've ruined
Bro, there's
millions
he's
upon
got-
millions
bro,
of
he's
lives.
got a body count.
course
Rupert
he
Murdoch
has.
has a body count.
Of course
Like,
he does.
What he has done has destroyed, mate. Not to sound like a fucking XR protester here, but like he could be part of the reason that half of the world isn't inhabitable one day because he's
Yeah.
convinced people
That's
not
what I mean.
to care about.
That's what
it.
I mean.
This is like you say, when you set dangerous precedent, it gets more and more dangerous. It doesn't sit at that level
Mm.
or below. It just gets worse. People then find
It
a hole to pick in the
intensifies.
original, yeah, and then it just building blocks.
It's
It
just
just goes
the levels
up
of
and up.
desensitization as well. When
Yes,
you desensitize
exactly,
to that bit,
exactly.
the next bit's going to be.
How
nothing
long
for
is
you.
it until we stop caring when people start commit suicide? How long is it until it's part of reality TV?
Well, how long is it until we start making these tabloids and the
Unfortunately, none of that's going to happen until the boomers fuck off. Because like,
Yeah.
they don't even want to know that. Like they know that it's full of shit, and they'll still spend £2 on it every day.
Yeah, but it's just
You can't argue with that. Like that's just the way they want to be.
and that's because they are installed into this mindset.
They find comfort
where
in
that's
reading
the way it
headlines about
is.
other people. Or they're famous, but they're still pricks, and we're not. It's that sort of
because
like,
they're famous, we're allowed to talk about them like this.
yeah.
Like,
And it's like,
Meghan-
no,
just 'cause Meghan Markle
paparazzi,
fell
you
in
should
love with
expect
someone.
paparazzi. You should expect a sort of harassment in a way that people are just going to come up to you when you're having dinner and ask for shit. Like, that is part of it. But yeah, it's the lies. We can't start throwing that in with that's just public life.
Yeah.
Like, hang on. No,
Like, I understand.
truth's supposed to be public life.
But on the to play devil's advocate, I
Yeah.
understand making a paper that does talk about things that, like, even gossipy things.
Yeah.
Like, I get that, but
It doesn't
we
have
can't
to be
we
like
can't
that.
allow these gossipy tabloids
To turn
turn into
lie factories.
lie factories. Yeah, I think that there has to be repercussions for these tabloids who are not presenting evidence for their claims.
Mm-hmm.
If you're presenting a claim, you have to produce some evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Produce a video, produce this, produce that. But then that's when people turn into TMZ.
Yeah.
That's when they start having these little
Yeah.
meetings with the police and all that. And
Yeah. A stark reminder.
like,
of
look
this.
at 6ix9ine situation.
Yeah.
The amount of shit that's come out about that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like, did we as the public really need to know?
Yeah.
We didn't.
No.
We didn't. But New York police and fucking TMZ, they're in
Cohorts.
They're in cahoots.
Yeah.
Cahoots. In
But
cahoots.
yeah, I think like what you're saying about how do we hold them accountable and shit like that.
Accountability.
A big reminder of how deeply ingrained it is BBC's biggest political presenter, Andrew Neil, member of the Tory party. So he has a political membership, not even an alignment. He has a membership. Also, he's the owner or chief editor, of The Spectator, a very, very, very right-wing magazine. Like, very. They have known anti-Semites and racists, and they all believe in eugenics and black people being dumber than us and shit like that and all that sort of shit.
Just like, what's his
and
name?
he'll sit there.
Cabinet.
Yeah,
drop a
Andrew
name.
Sabitsky, I think his name is.
Thank you.
But yeah, and Andrew Neil will sit there, and he's allowed to. He's allowed to sit there and pretend you're a Labour MP. Can you explain the anti-Semitism crisis in Labour? Can you explain why your leader is anti-Semitic? This is viewed as an impartial interview based on facts, stats, data, and the truth. This guy
By our
edits for a
state
magazine
broadcaster.
that has been charged for anti-Semitism. One of the people he pays when he leaves the BBC studio is publicly anti-Semitic, but he's allowed to go onto the BBC as an impartial broadcaster and grill other people about what he pays for. How are we ever going to get to the truth without tearing it down completely? But I think the point you was making when we first started, tabloids is the most important because they are the most outright bullshitty.
Yes.
Like, completely, they just make stuff up. I mean, I don't think I said it on the episode, but I said last week that they said that Corbyn will ignite the second Holocaust the day before the election. No comeuppance, nothing, because Corbyn lost, so there's no one to hold them to account anymore.
And that, what's it called? The Tories like sacked it. The investigation into press. What was it?
Leveson inquiry. Yeah, give the Leveson a good inquiry a Google because it's mega interesting.
Then you'll realise why the press was so against Labour, so pro-Tory as well. Like,
one party was going to shake it up, and the other party's going to make it more like American Fox News.
And the other party is just gonna let the other party do what they wanted to do.
Yeah, and the third party will just let the bad party do what they want and say that they're more aligned to the good party and get away with it. British politics. No, but
Nick Clegg.
Yeah. But it is. It's so deeply sort of twisted round that it's impossible to be impartial when what you accuse people of on your shows is what you're absolutely fine with, and there's no context that, like, actually the view that Jews control banks is actually a common view amongst academics, not just the stupid racist public or stupid lefty protesters. It's actually fueled by the journalists and shit. They ain't fucking... They're little fucking poshos and shit. They're kids that went to Oxford and Cambridge and didn't do that well, so now they're just a fucking journalist and that. Like, these aren't normal people that got there through their investigative talents. These are mouthpieces, people that they know have a set view. And Noam Chomsky interviewed Andrew Marr, who's another flagship BBC political guy. And Noam Chomsky asked him and said that they look for reporters with certain political views and shit like that. And Andrew Marr says, so you think I'm only here because of my political views? And he goes, no. But you wouldn't be here if you didn't have those views. And it's the truth. Like... We need to tear it down and build it back up from the start. Truth, news, information should not be a privatised
It's like there's a certain alignment which has worked their way to a certain position.
Yeah.
And then the only way to combat that is to weasel them out.
Yeah.
But we can't weasel them out because they're in too much power.
Yeah.
You know,
And not
got
enough
Murdoch.
people care enough.
Murdoch has billions upon billions upon billions of pounds.
The best lawyers in the world.
So he's going to get the best lawyers in the world. He's going to do all this and all that. And so nothing's going to happen to
Yeah.
it. Meanwhile, Australia's having the worst fires it's ever had
Yeah. Yeah.
in recorded history.
Do you know what the thing is as well? Even like opposing these newspapers, like the problem with it is, and I still
It just
stand
becomes
by,
a culture war. You're just
No,
a lefty and you're
well,
just
the other
jealous because
thing
they're
is-
all rich or
the
whatever.
other thing is as well as like as much as like I read more left wing papers anyway.
Yeah.
But well, papers I say I read it online every now and then. But
Yeah.
even then, I look at some of the tactics that are employed by like during the elections, and I think it was you that pointed it out to me that actually just made me think. Hold on a minute, am I in like a left wing like echo
Bubble.
chamber at the minute?
Yeah.
Like, am I? It was you that pointed that out to me. Like, but
The
then
left
you look at
winger
it-
pointed that out.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you
We
look at
take
it though, and you think
responsibility.
about it. What was that? Again, it's probably going to come back. I've probably quoted Nietzsche enough times on this show already. But he who fights with monsters, you have to employ the same. You become a monster fighting
Yeah,
with
that's
them.
it.
You have to employ the same tactics. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't take a gun to a fist fight.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's the one thing with I will add with Corbyn is that we've got to learn next time you just tell him it's a fucking lie and tell him to jog on.
Mate, do you know what? This is
And
the
He
thing
was
as
too.
well.
He tried to be too honourable with
Mate,
it.
Well,
that's
yeah,
it,
he's an
that's it,
honourable man,
sadly.
and honourable
That's
men
it.
can't fight unfair
No,
battles.
exactly.
Like
No.
he should
You
have,
gotta be as
he should have
dirty
been
as
there
your
for
opponent.
20 years later. He's not. He shouldn't. He's not the guy to instigate the war on the lies that
That's
we're
the
told,
problem,
and not
mate.
even
He's
not
so
even on a
deceived.
political thing.
Lamb to the slaughter, mate.
Just the
that
fact,
was.
yeah, just the fact that he wouldn't name call and things like that. He'd never talk about someone individually and shit like that. As honourable as that is,
Mate, what they
we
did
don't
to
live
him
in
was
those
disgraceful,
times.
mate.
Yeah,
Like,
his
absolutely
reputation
ripped him
tarnished.
apart.
Good, honest sounding people committing suicide. The global warming crisis becoming a lie, or to people is becoming a lie just because there's been lies about the climate before, etc. This is going on right now. Tomorrow, someone else will be affected by it. And, I mean, look, hours as in like 2 or 3 hours after her death was announced, they put out a big piece on Katie Price and how she lives like a tramp and shit like that. And it's
Oh
just
yeah,
like,
she just came
will
out and
you
said, "I
learn?
don't want any public. I don't want to be public at all."
No.
Literally, she came out and said that the other day. I think.
Yeah. And like this Stephanie Davis coming out and saying that this is just one step too far. It was all fun and games and innocent and gossipy, and now it's become a bit
It's real.
nasty.
Someone's died.
Yeah, it's real.
People have died, and
Yeah.
I think bringing this back round to what we were saying about a lot of these ITV presenters and stuff talking about how
Just putting
they're-
the buck on everyone
they're
else.
just
yeah.
say, well,
Us?
coming round,
We
well,
could
coming,
never.
well, the fact that they're coming round and saying, "Oh yeah, we're so sad about her death," blah blah blah. If you're gonna talk about that, you need to talk about why.
and what
And
you're
you
going
need
to
to
do to stop it.
And if you have a platform, because unfortunately we don't have a platform like that, we can't talk to the whole country.
Yeah, more,
so people
just
aren't going to
before
listen
everyone
to
goes
us.
to work.
Exactly. Whereas these people, this is like, so it's like you take the Gary Neville situation for example. Him going on Sky Sports and saying something like that was
If it
like
wasn't Gary Neville,
it was such a
that
shock.
could have cost him his job.
Exactly.
But he's the main guy at Sky Sports now.
Exactly.
So it's too obvious if they get rid of him.
Exactly. So, but then you got these ITV presenters who are gonna be, oh, Caroline, we miss you and that. So anyway, today in the shit cunt son,
Well, this
like,
is
do you know
it.
what I
Just
mean?
think,
They're being
some point
paid
this
by the
week-
people who killed the person
Yeah.
who they're
yeah,
sorry that
we're going to be getting that
mad.
off of Piers Morgan this week at some
Exactly.
point. We're going to have that guy, the guy that printed fake pictures of soldiers torturing people and put military personnel at risk, the guy that hacked dead girls' phones, etc., etc., and he's going to be sitting there telling us why we should ban anonymous accounts because of how sad it is and political manoeuvring and stuff like that. There's no place for
and
it.
it's because they're going to use language orientated scare tactics. Trolls. It was the trolls.
Yeah,
it
they
was
got
this.
her. They
It was
got to
that.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have
the
you
abuse. But what they do to her isn't called abuse,
Exactly.
etc.,
Have
etc.
you sat and
Exactly, it's-
spoken to like older people about the internet and there's all of these buzzwords that they throw around?
Well, yeah, they all think it's
Mate,
just
it's
a sweaty
actually
don sitting in
crazy.
his room.
Like, I every Saturday I go and I do French clubs, so I chill with like people that are older. But I see a lot of different opinions and different like people's different opinions on things and the way that people think about things. And one of the things that they always bring up is internet. They're all scared of it.
Yeah,
It's mad.
Yeah. Right. I think we should wrap up there
Yeah, we've got a bit.
before we steer away from the point anymore. You know? We need to get.
I mean, was
better
there
at
any-
saying to the point? But we
Yeah.
just there's this. But this
There's
is the
too
thing,
much to uncover.
It's so deep.
It is.
And no one talks about it. So I don't know about you two, but I guess you're the same. There's almost like a sense of duty to,
That's the
to
thing,
get as
I'm-
much out as possible.
Exactly. I
Because the
feel
surface
responsible.
level shit isn't working. This, oh, they lie sometimes. It just becomes, well, that's the way it is.
And as us on this show, like with your show, it's
It's my show.
but like with doing this, we sort of feel like there's a lot of people around about our age and younger than us and even older than us who haven't had the information given to them in a digestible way.
No.
And so the only thing we can even hope to do is to
Spark an interest in you, innit?
bring that conversation
Yeah.
to these people in like we said, like layman's terms. You know what I mean? Like
and
we
then
need
you
to
can start having that conversation at work with someone else that doesn't know.
Exactly.
And you can start sticking up. Because this is it. It's hard for people like us to stick up for our beliefs because there's such a lack of understanding around it.
exactly.
And yeah, once
And
we
then-
break the context down, we can start actually progressing.
Yeah. No, it's true, man. Like these, like I just hope these conversations that we're having here in this room can help to spark a larger conversation
Yeah,
for people around the country
yeah,
and even in other countries as well.
yeah.
Like it needs to be something that we
If
shouldn't we shouldn't just sit there and be okay with the Sun saying all this stuff and then
Yeah,
because they
that's
post top 10 student meals of the week that we're meant to,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean, go and click
Think
on
it's
it.
all
Like
okay.
think it's all okay. Like no, like when it comes to so like just a quick point, I just want to bring it back to football. So if we look at Unai Emery, he didn't get sacked until there was only about what I think it was like 17,000 seats filled in the Emirates. Record low,
Yeah.
a record low.
Yeah.
It took
That's less
that.
than half,
it
isn't
took
it?
that to scare a corporation
Yeah.
into doing it. We attacked their money, not in a little 10, 30 million. It was a oh shit. People don't even want to
Yeah.
come here no more.
And do you know what?
And so we need to transfer that sort of them actions into our daily actions. When you see a newspaper, like when you hear that these newspapers are lying and that they're scrutinizing these people, remember the name.
Yes.
Remember the name of that
Yes.
newspaper. So in
Take
future,
it personally.
exactly.
'Cause it
And
can
next
happen
time
to
you
you.
read that,
Yeah.
next time you read something from them, think, oh, am I contributing to them spreading their agenda?
Yeah.
You got to think
and
about
start
that.
to watch as well how if they're saying something about someone you don't like and you like to read that, you're like, oh yeah, I don't like that person
Check
anyway.
yourself.
But then go and
remember.
check and watch and listen and remember what they say about people that you do like when
Yeah.
when you're on the receiving end of it.
Yeah.
Because they do it to both sides.
And then when you're hearing this thing that this person's done bad that you don't like, think about what you've done in your life.
Yeah.
Think about the worst thing you've done.
Yeah. And
It's
imagine if that was
A lot of people, it's
exposed.
probably worse
Edward
than that.
Snowden.
Yeah.
A lot of people, it's probably worse than
Yeah.
Caroline Flack having a fucking domestic with her boyfriend.
Yeah. And hurting herself.
Hurting
by accident.
herself. Her blood being everywhere.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I think the overriding message today is that the power.
It's in the hands of the people.
Exactly.
It's in the
You might
numbers.
not have it individually, but together, they don't have anyone else to turn to if we're all together.
We need to
The
see
power
that, mate, I
is in
think,
your
'cause-
hands as people. Yeah, and bro, like I kept referring to the German model in football. It's all around people power. More people watch it than try to fuck it over. So why not side with the majority of people, etc., etc. But I do want to leave it on something that Caroline Flack said.
well, just before that,
Yeah.
obviously we were talking about how we as people need to wake up to this. I sent you a video the other day, and it was a government-made video talking about looking into fake news
Yeah.
and these sort of things with that little green,
Yeah,
that
the
little
irony.
green, and
the
it
green
was-
troll.
I think one thing that really stood out to me was looking through the comments and seeing the rebuttal. And this is the power of the internet.
Yeah.
So this government is releasing. So the government is releasing this video,
And the people ain't having
and the
it.
people. So there might be the average person who believes everything the government says. All of a sudden, they're able to now click on the comments and see the whole devil's advocate point of view of it. The fact that people are sitting there and saying it's very rich you saying that when
I see
what you
through
did,
it. Yeah,
I see
yeah.
through it, and this is a reason why I see through it.
Yeah.
And all these people are now dropping sources and links, and that's just one instance. But we as people do need to. Like, I'm not trying to sound like a fucking. Do you know what I mean?
Have some fucking prerogative. Make it important because
it doesn't need to be to the extent of even what we're doing of coming and having producing content and all this, but I think all of us as human beings need to take that responsibility of helping out our fellow man.
Yeah, that's
in
it.
terms of
Tell your parents if they've got it wrong. Let them know.
and it could just even be a passing comment.
Yeah, when your boss at work tells you Corbyn's a terrorist, innit? Even if you don't like him, tell him.
Tell him it's not.
just made that up.
Don't worry about how your job might be in jeopardy if you say
don't
something.
worry
Fuck
if you
all
look
that.
too left
Fuck
or
all
too
that.
right. Stick to the truth, and we'll get there in the end, innit?
And
Like,
even check yourself as well. Like,
Yeah,
like
big-
with
oh,
me
big
and
time.
reading the
as a very
newspapers, like-
left-wing person, I do have to very often check myself and just sort of bring myself back to the majority, and then go back to your opinion. innit?
Hopefully, that kind of mentality of being able to step away from your own ideologies could be a progressive mindset
Yeah.
that the world hasn't seen yet.
Yeah.
Because it's always been
We need
left
the best
socialist communism or right
Fascism,
fucking
Nazis,
fascism,
yeah,
Hitler,
yeah, yeah.
blah blah blah. Like, it's always been one or the other. It's never been. Oh, I
The
agree
right
with
answer.
that, but I agree with that, and on that
Yeah.
note, I just want to say Bernie 2020.
Yeah, Bernie
Bernie
2020.
2020. Because that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
promoting that message.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And with them government messages, can they please stop that little tone at the beginning because it freaks me out? That little prepare for Brexit.
Yeah, yeah.
Bruv, it actually
don't-
freaks
Black
me out,
Mirror.
mate.
It's Black
Bruv,
Mirror,
it
ain't it?
freaks me out. I don't want to, mate. It's like the iPhone ping sound, bruv. You know when it pings and
yeah,
everyone
it's
checks
too
that?
much
It's
now.
too Pavlovian, mate.
Yeah, yeah.
But what was you going to say? You said there was
Yes.
something Caroline said.
Yeah, take this, think about it when you go and have your tea or your little zooty or whatever you do. In a
both.
world where you can be whatever you want, be kind. Caroline Flack was one of the last things she ever posted, and I think the best way that you can honour someone is to take their advice, their parting advice. And yeah, if we find the truth, we be kind to each other, everyone will be alright, and it won't matter where you're from, who you are, what you did, what you're doing, because everyone will be okay, if you know what I mean.
And everyone who loves Caroline, like people who really find her as a idol and things like that.
Don't drop this.
The only, like,
Get out the fucking tabloids and shit.
taking
This is an
taking this
opportunity.
situation and living what she what she promoted in her last thing, and also going at the people who caused this.
Yeah, it's the only way to honour someone.
That's the
innit?
way her spirit can live on.
Yeah,
If not, she died in vain.
yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately.
And don't believe it will be the last if you don't chase it.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
yeah,
We've got to use this as a sorry it had to be you, Caroline, but you triggered the change for good.
Mm.
That's how we got to leave it.
Well, hopefully she did, man. Hopefully she did.
Yeah, hopefully we'll come back to this conversation and say, fucking hell, that's what actually started all of this goodness in the world. But no, thanks very much for listening, watching, however you've taken the content in. Thank you, boys, as
bless.
always.
Thanks
You've
for
been
having us.
Very beautiful guests. Yeah, bro, we'll see you most nights of the week from now on. And if not, we'll see you in some new clothes next week.
Hey. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, bless up.
Peace.